Hey everyone, it's Mike from Inflatable Boarder, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Honu Byron 10'6" all-around stand-up paddleboard. The Honu Byron is an all-around inflatable stand-up paddleboard built for paddling performance. It has a clean, well-executed minimalist design and high-quality construction and effective shaping to make it a blast to paddle. Inside the Honu Byron is a lightweight woven drop stitch core that uses a low density cross drop stitch pattern to connect the top and bottom layers with a 4.7-inch thickness. The outer shell of the Honu Byron is made with a single layer fused PVC material. Now, single layer PVC used to be a 4-letter word in the paddleboard industry, but over the last 5 or so years, new materials, constructions, and technologies have really advanced and brought single layer materials back into the forefront of performance. To bind the board together, Honu has a triple layer rail system that uses 3 layers of PVC around the outer edge of the board for additional durability and rigidity. These advanced materials and construction techniques keep the Honu Byron very light at just over 17 pounds for the board, but also allow it to have a maximum internal pressure of 20 psi. The Honu Byron is only 4.7 inches thick, which, compared to a traditional 6-inch SUP, typically means that it's going to be more flexible. However, that assumes that the boards are built the exact same and using the exact same materials. So in our bend test, the 4.7-inch thick Honu Byron inflated to 20 psi bent only 1.5 inches with 170 pounds of weight on it. Now that's right at our running average of over 100 boards, but the vast majority of those are 6 inches thick. So while it's just an average board for rigidity, it's actually extremely good considering its thickness. However, the most important thing when we're talking about rigidity is how it feels on the water, and that can be very different from what the bend test tells us. While out on the water, the Honu Byron feels great. I didn't notice any flexing while I was standing on the board or paddling casually. However, I did notice flex when I was paddling very hard for our sprint test, and of course while I was jumping up and down on it for our bounce test. While doing the bounce test, the board does flex quite a bit, but as soon as I stop jumping, the board settles back down calmly and smoothly, and it doesn't have any trampoline-like feel. The Honu Byron is shaped like a fairly typical all-around paddleboard. It's 10.5 feet long, it measured 31.5 inches wide, and is 4.7 inches thick. Now the specified width for the Byron is 32 inches wide, and we did find that it was a little bit smaller than that. However, as we'll get to in just a minute with stability, I didn't feel it actually affected the performance that much. The Honu Byron weighs just over 17 pounds and has a maximum recommended rider weight of 240 pounds. Now, if you are a beginner paddler over 200 pounds, I would recommend checking out the Honu Fairlight. It's a slightly larger version of the Byron with the same outline, and it just has a little bit more stability and a little bit more volume to help support you as you're learning. I would estimate that the Honu Byron has a maximum total capacity of about 300 pounds. So if you do plan on bringing a lot of equipment with you for a full day on the water, or you want to paddle with a passenger, keep that in mind. The 4.7-inch thickness of the Byron does reduce the overall volume, which is why we're seeing these smaller numbers for rider weight and maximum capacity. However, that also has the added benefit of lowering your center of gravity and keeping you closer to the water. So even though the Honu Byron measured just 31.5 inches instead of 32 inches, it still feels just as stable, if not more so, than similar boards that are 10.5 by 32 by 6 inches. The Byron has a classic all-around paddleboard shape with a wide rounded nose, a gentle curve through the midsection of the board, and then a medium square tail at the end. I did notice a small amount of flex in the board when I was moving around to change position. However, it was very smooth and it was very controlled and consistent feeling. Overall, I didn't notice any twitching or rolling on the board while I was standing still or paddling normally, and even when I was paddling hard and the board was flexing, it didn't feel like it was going to throw me off. You do need to be aware that this is a lower volume paddleboard compared to a 6-inch thick inflatable. And what that means is that it's going to be easier to sink that tail into the water, and it's going to rise back to the surface slower once you take your weight off of it. If you are coming directly from a 6-inch thick inflatable paddleboard, you may want to give yourself just a few minutes to play around with that and feel how the Byron feels a little bit different at the tail. But if you're coming from a hardboard, it's going to feel very comfortable or very similar. With that wide nose and gentle tapered shape, we do get a lot of stability, making a great option for beginner paddlers. But the thinner rail also makes it easier to engage and a little bit more playful and sporty for those intermediate and advanced paddlers. The Honu Byron is an all-around stand-up paddleboard, so it's built more for comfort than it is for speed. It has quick acceleration, but just a moderate top speed. At a sustained sprint, I was able to keep the Byron at about a 4.8 mile per hour average, but I was able to get it up to a fairly quick top speed of 5.4 miles per hour. Now, all of this did take quite a bit of effort, and as I mentioned earlier, the board does begin to flex more as you paddle harder and harder. But one of the great things about it is it's so light that it quickly gets up to speed. And this is a great news for someone in the surf zone who wants to play around with a little bit of SUP surfing and is looking for that quick acceleration over a short period of time to catch a wave. Now, slowing things down to a more casual pace of about 25 strokes per minute, the Byron does cruise along at a nice 3.3 miles per hour. This is a great speed for casual paddling, and the board feels really good, and I didn't notice any flexing or bending while I was paddling around at these slightly slower speeds. The board's shape and profile make it feel like it glides effortlessly through the water, and in our gliding test, I found that it would move about 18 feet on average between strokes before it slowed down, giving it a gliding ratio of about 1.7 board lengths per stroke. That's fairly high for a standard all-around paddleboard, and it does feel great to paddle on the water. If you are looking for an inflatable paddleboard that's going to be moving a lot faster and a lot more efficiently for long periods of time, then I'd recommend checking out the Honu Sorrento. It's Honu's touring inflatable paddleboard, and it does move quite fast and quite efficient, especially when it's paired with the Honu paddles. The Honu Byron is extremely maneuverable, and it did very well in our agility testing. In our forward sweep stress test, the Byron made a complete 360-degree turn in just 4.25 strokes on average. When we reverse that and use a reverse sweep to make the same turn, it took just 3.5 strokes on average. The Byron is super responsive to steering, and you can easily turn the board 90 degrees or even more with a single paddle stroke. If you are wanting to turn on a dime, pivot turns on the Honu Byron are extremely quick. Stepping back to the tail quickly sinks the back of the board, lifting the nose, and allows you to spin around in a complete circle in just 2 paddle strokes. The thinner 4.7-inch thick rail profile also allows you to engage the side of the board a little bit easier, whether you're on a wave face or if you're paddling on the river and wanting to carve a turn. That thinner profile makes it just so much easier to do. Oftentimes, super impressive maneuverability, like with the Byron, indicates that it may not do so well in our tracking test, but that's not actually the case. In our 10-stroke tracking test, the Byron actually did very well for an all-around paddleboard, deviating an average of just 17 degrees from its original course after 10 paddle strokes. The Byron has a single US fin box on the tail of the board, and it does come with a 9-inch all-around or surf-style fin. Because it's a US standard fin box, you can swap that out for any number of hundreds of other fins to change your maneuverability and tracking performance. So if you want better tracking, you can put a larger fin on, or if you want more maneuverability or you're going to be paddling in shallower water, you can use a shorter fin. Honu's minimalist design makes for a very clean, sleek-looking paddleboard, but it does mean there aren't quite as many built-in features on the Byron as there are on some other all-around paddleboards. At the front of the board, we do have a small cargo area that uses a bungee cord strung between 4 fabric loops. This cargo area is large enough to hold small and medium-sized dry bags. There is a front and a center carrying handle on the Byron, but there is no handle on the tail of the board. Now at 17 pounds, the Byron is typically going to be light enough that most people won't have an issue carrying it by themselves, but if you do want to carry it with a friend, you can have one person at the nose, and the thinner profile of the board does make it easier to hold with your hands rather than using a handle. The deck pad covers a large portion of the board and uses both a diamond groove pattern and a pebbled texture for extreme traction. At the end of the deck pad, there is a raised kick pad to prevent you from walking off the back of the board on accident. And behind the deck pad, there is another small bungee cord. Now this bungee cord can be used to hold small items, but its intended purpose is to be used as a paddle holder. You can thread your paddle underneath the bungee cords and have it pressed up against the raised kick pad to help hold it in place. At the very tail of the board, the last items that we have are a leash D-ring and the inflation valve. On the bottom of the board, the only feature that we have is that split style US fin box. The Honu Byron starts as what we call a board-only kit. Along with the board itself, you get the 9-inch all-around style fin, a coiled ankle leash, and a small repair kit. All of this comes with a very nice wheeled carrying backpack. Additionally, one of the nice things that I really appreciate about Honu is their commitment to using biodegradable packaging. So when you do receive your board, rather than having the Byron wrapped up in a thin plastic film, it's wrapped in paper, and even the repair kit comes packaged in a biodegradable bag rather than a hard plastic container. As a board-only kit, the Byron does not come packaged with a paddle or a pump automatically. However, Honu does allow you to add these items at the time of purchase at a discounted rate. This also allows you the opportunity to change from a hand pump to an electric pump, or to upgrade your paddle to one of Honu's extremely nice carbon fiber versions. As I mentioned, the Byron does not automatically include a paddle. However, Honu has 5 different paddles available that you can choose from to bundle with your board. There's the Honu Evolution, the Honu Evolution Bamboo, the Honu Evolution Large, the Honu Elements, and the Honu Elements Junior. The Honu Evolution paddle is what I consider to be one of the best hidden gems of the SUP world. Dollar for dollar, this paddle offers amazing performance well beyond its price range, and it's one that I have recommended to many people and will continue to do so. The Evolution series uses a pre-preg 12K carbon fiber material for the shaft. The same material is used for the blade of the paddle, and the bamboo version has a veneer of real bamboo applied over the top, along with your choice of paint color. The handle section and the molded grip are also made with that same 12K carbon fiber material. The handle has length markings so you can easily set the length every time you use it, and it has an indexing groove on the back to help keep the handle aligned with the paddle blade. It uses a compression collar that's easily adjustable so that you can set the tension where it needs to be. And one of the things that really sets this paddle out amongst other carbon fiber paddles is the way that it connects together at the bottom. Where most carbon fiber paddles will use a simple circular ferrule and a push button, or they may have a compression collar to connect the two pieces, Honu, you can see why I like this, Honu uses a hexagonal insert so that the paddle cannot twist once it's on. This helps eliminate all of the play between the two sections without using an additional compression collar. The only other paddles that I've seen this ferrule system implemented on are upwards of $500 to $700 for the paddle, whereas the Honu Evolution is much more affordable, between $200 and $250 depending on the version and any ongoing sales. Lastly, all of Honu's paddles come packaged in an extremely nice padded paddle bag that has not only a large opening here for the paddle, but also dividers for the handle section and the shaft section to make sure that everything stays nice and protected and doesn't get scratched up as you move from place to place. The Honu Evolution paddles weigh between 21 to 22 ounces depending on which options you choose, which is extremely light. That 12K carbon fiber also makes them extremely stiff, which means you can get a ton of power with these paddles. And when I say that the Honu Evolution is a hidden gem and hits way above its price class, it is the paddle that I bring with me when I'm traveling for races as a backup for my $600 race paddle. So this is not a cheap paddle by any means, but it is an extremely good value, and I'd highly recommend hurrying up and get one before Honu figures that out, because they are really excellent paddles at an incredible price. The Honu Elements is a very similar paddle, but instead of a carbon fiber blade, you get a fiber reinforced nylon blade. It is going to be softer feeling in the water. So for especially smaller paddlers or those who just want to casually cruise around and not necessarily need that larger power output, the Elements paddle can be a little bit more comfortable and a little bit less stress on your shoulders and on your body as you paddle. But for those who are wanting that ultimate performance, the Honu Evolution is absolutely the way to go. The Honu Byron is a fun, playful, all-around stand-up paddleboard that focuses on the paddling experience. It's designed to give you the best possible feeling while you're on the water and help make you feel like you're actually connected to the water rather than standing on top of it. The Byron has outstanding quality and exceptional performance, and it also carries a 4-year total care warranty for the paddleboard and a 2-year warranty for the paddles, which is double the longest paddle warranty I've ever seen. The Byron is one of those really easy recommendations for me to make for anybody who wants to enjoy their paddling experience for paddling's sake. It's great for beginners and offers plenty of stability, but it's still very playful and fun to paddle as an intermediate or advanced paddler. Now, if you're a heavier paddler, you may want to look at the Honu Fairlight, which is essentially the same shape, but in a slightly larger size. Or if you're a smaller paddler and you want something that's going to be very nimble, Honu does make a 9-foot 8-inch version of the Byron. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I've answered all of your questions about the Honu Byron. If I missed something or you still have a question, please let us know in the comments below. In the video description, you'll find a link to the full written review for the Honu Byron, as well as Honu's other iSUPs and dozens of others over at InflatableBoarder.com. If you're interested in purchasing the Byron, we'd appreciate it if you'd use the link in our video description. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does help support our YouTube channel and bring you more review and other SUP-related content. Thanks for watching. Don't forget your PFD, and happy paddling.